Have you ever wondered how much time you might spend on doing a mundane thing that you typically tend to do, right? Let's say looking for your keys. If you're a notorious key misplacer, right? I wonder how many hours or weeks or months of your life that you've spent on that one single mundane task, right? That you just happen to find yourself doing every day or every other day or whatever that might look like, right? Because it leads me to the question of like wasted time. And it cripples us. It cripples all of us in different aspects of our life, right? We tend to waste a lot of time. There's a lot of time that we have to spend on doing things that that we don't necessarily enjoy, right? I'll use work as a good example there, right? Most people don't really thoroughly love their jobs, but we spend a lot of time at them. And then sleeping. I love sleeping, but you give up, a third of your life being completely unconscious, right? It's kind of so then during your waking hours and then during the time that you have that's yours, right? How much time do we waste? Do we give away, right? Without really thinking about it too much. And begs the question because I would argue it's actually a lot. And as it pertains to goals, we all hopefully have goals. I have goals. You've had goals at some point or another in your life, whether you have one right now or not. I argue that most people should. But why is it that we know what we need to do, right? We know what we need to do. Let's say you want to get a beach body, or you want to lose weight, or you want to start that business, that online business, right, and start posting content. We know what to do, but why don't we do it? Right? Why don't we do it? And there are a few things here working against us, or a few sort of psychological processes that tend to block us and get in the way. And it goes back to, well, actually, you know what? I'll conclude with this point, right? I want to go through it first because I think it's super important. It's a question that can really, it's one that we need to ponder for ourselves, I think, right? Because psychologically speaking, we're all going to have different sort of isms that we're working with, different traits and habits that we each have. But I think we can paint a broad enough picture, to sort of answer and hopefully, get us directed and focused enough to achieve whatever goal it is that we might be wrestling with at the moment, right? So we know what to do. Why don't we do it, right? So, firstly, I mean, obviously, we're using the same brain, right, to figure out the plan and then execute the plan, right? So, but really and truly knowing what to do and then actually executing are two completely different things, right? And I think that's why goal setting and planning feel good, right? You get excited, once you have an idea in your head and you want to execute on that plan, it feels good, right? Because you're thinking about where you're going to end up, right? And that's exciting. You can see that future version of yourself, right? Whether it's saving for something that you want to buy financially, whether it's again losing weight, going to the gym, starting a business, whatever it might be, right? It feels good when you sit down. You're like, you know what? I know what to do. I know what to do, and I can't wait to get there. But then you get into that mode in between where it's like, I know what to do, but man, I just can't seem to get it done, right? So knowing and doing are two completely different things, because once you get to the doing phase, um, you're using the same brain to execute that you are to plan, right? And then so think about it this way: you have future self over here, and then you have current self, and these two versions of you want two completely different things, right? Your future version of yourself wants the goal attained, right? Current version of you wants to typically do the least amount possible to achieve the biggest result, right? I think that's fair to say of most people in life. And that starts at a very early age, right? When you're very, very young, you want to try to, get the most you can for the least amount of effort. And unless you're truly doing something that you absolutely love in life, most people aren't willing to sort of go the extra mile naturally, right? Without instant rewards, right? We live in a very sort of instant gratification culture, right? And but that supports our biology, because our biology is, we want comfort, we want the thing now, right? And to use a couple of principles as an example, right? Your default mode network, right? That's going to work exactly against that future version of yourself, because again, you come home from work and now it's time to execute on your plans, right? Your personal time and that goal. And what do? You eat dinner, you're exhausted, you've been making decisions all day, you got decision fatigue, default mode network kicks in. I need comfort right now because I'm tired. I'll do it tomorrow, right? I'm going to sit down and watch TV instead, right? So that's one of the things that's working against you. And I've talked about this in my shorts. And by the way, if you haven't seen, my shorts, there's a pretty large collection of shorts on my channel now with all the different psychological principles that I talk through in 60 to 90 seconds. I recommend you check those out. But we want that instant gratification, that comfort, right? And then what that leads to is we end up starting tomorrow, and then we get into the same cycle, right? And we just continue to make the same decisions. And oftentimes that leads back to motivation, right? How do we feel? Again, do I feel like doing the thing tonight, leading me to my goal, right? And again, the minute you attribute how you feel about it to your action, you're involving emotion, which is motivation, which wanes, right? That peaks and valleys, and it's never going to be consistent for you. So you're in trouble, right? If whether you're going to decide to do the thing or not depends on how you feel about it, you're in trouble, right? So knowing and doing are completely different things. That's the first important point. And I touched on it, right? But now current you, has very different priorities to future you. Future you wants, and maybe you can even feel having achieved that goal, right? You can see yourself, right? You can imagine, making money in your online business. You can imagine, being slimmer or having that, beach body from going to the gym or whatever other goals you have, right? You can see yourself there. But current you wants that comfort. Current you wants the instant gratification. I love the idea of getting there, but if it means, applying some action to my little bit of spare time that I have after going to work all day and taking care of my kids and running my kids to their activities and and I'm tired, oh man, I'll start tomorrow, or I'll start next week. Let me clear off these few things off of my schedule, and then I'll start on me next week, right? And that's pretty dangerous. It's something that happens to all of us. Again, it is the brain's biology at work here. And again, if you haven't seen my shorts, I talk about this all the time. Your brain's biology, right? Your brain has a function to keep you safe and keep you alive. And one of the main ways that it's going to do that is to encourage you to do less, to take it easy, to put your feet up, to stay safe, right? Don't take risks. And oftentimes, achieving a goal means taking a risk, right? And then implementing change gradually, right? Every day, taking a little bit more risk, getting a bit more uncomfortable. That goes against everything that your brain naturally wants in its natural state for you, right? So now you, today, and future you have completely different priorities. The only problem that you have is you're using the same brain for both versions of yourself. So there's this tug of war. There's this, this wrestling going on psychologically with you and with all of us, right? I'm absolutely, as subject to this as everybody else, right? And then you've got the overthinking piece of it too, right? Which, that's kind of even worse, right? It can be even worse. You can overthink something to death. What is it? Paralysis by analysis, right? It's a pretty common phrase. And that's absolutely true as well. You can think and think and think and overthink, and then you end up doing nothing because you're just stuck in this mode of chewing over the idea, right? And, it leads you to a point. At some point, if you're an overthinker, you've got to get to that point where you realize, man, I just need to take the plunge, right? Take the risk, get into action, think about it later, right? And you'll learn as you go, frankly, right? So that's the second point, right? The first one is knowing and doing are completely different things. The second thing is now you and future you have completely different priorities, right? But the same brain is trying to figure this piece out, right? And there's that gap in the middle, right? And the third thing really ties back again to emotions and motivation, right? But it's you can't decide every day, right? If you find yourself stuck in this loop of making the decision every day, again, you're in trouble because that's a good indicator that you're depending on motivation and not discipline. If you wake up in the morning and go, okay, it's a brand new day, I'm going to go do my job and I'm going to do this and that and the other thing, and then, right, I'm going to apply some action towards my goals after all of those things are done, right? If you've made that decision in the morning, chances are, again, decision fatigue, exhaustion, the default mode network kicking in, all the other principles that I talk about in my shorts, right? By the time you get to the evening time, you're spent, right? And what gets sacrificed is the one thing that you are gonna do for yourself, right? You've let yourself down ultimately, right? And I've done this a million times too, right? You get to the end of the day, and what you think is you're not letting yourself down, right? Because you're tired, you're rewarding yourself, you're actually giving yourself what you need. You need rest, right? And that's fine, right? So, but the difference is, if you're deciding every morning, right, and then so you rest, you go to bed, and then you start the next day and you do the same thing again. Okay, I'm going to do all my things, and then at the end of the day, I'm gonna do it today. Make sure I'm going to do it today, right? You're deciding in the day, which means you're trying to depend on motivation, and it's going to fail you again because you're going to go through your day, and by the time you get home, you're going to be exhausted, and it's just going to be this cycle that repeats and repeats and repeats. And it's breaking that cycle that's the most important thing that you can do when you have a goal. And it doesn't matter what goal it is, it applies across the board, right? You've got to stop negotiating with yourself. You've got to stop deciding every day, right? What you need to do is you need to have a plan. And then if you think about all the other obligations that you have, right? Your family, your job, whatever it might be, whatever activities your kids might have if you have a family, whatever other things you have, right? Church maybe, right? Whatever other, activities you have in your life that are non-negotiables for you, right? You're going to tack another small one on, and it can be small, right? And in fact, it probably needs to be because you have a lot of other things going on. And if we're talking about self-discipline, which is where this is getting to, right? If we're talking about self-discipline, and you're going to wake up and and this is point 3, right, that we've been talking through, you're not going to negotiate with yourself anymore, right? You need to have that discipline plan in place. So instead of waking up and saying, okay, today's the day, I'm going to do all the other stuff that I have to do that I do every single day, right? Because I have discipline around all those things. But this thing that I need to do for myself, because I've decided I want to do something for myself, right? You're no longer going to make that decision in the morning. Not every morning, right? Because that becomes a negotiation. You're going to have a plan in place, and you're going to execute on that plan, and you're going to have that small thing, right? Now, when you depend on motivation, again, what happens? You go really hot and heavy, right? You decide, okay, now you get home from work and, excuse me, you're like, all right, I'm going to go hot and heavy, right? Let's use the gym as an example. This is a great one. Instead of going to the gym for 20 minutes consistently every day, you're super motivated one day and you go this first day and you go for an hour and a half and you absolutely bust your butt in the gym, and then the following day you're in pain. Your legs hurt, your arms hurt, you're exhausted. You didn't sleep because you're in pain, right? And then what happens? You fall off, right? Because you went too hot and heavy, too hard, and then it disrupted that routine that you need in order to achieve your goals, right? So you got to stop negotiating with yourself, right? So again, back to self-discipline. You decide on a small action, a smaller action, right? You're going to commit to every day, that you're going to stack, you're going to add it to your other routines and your other obligations that you have. And it's a non-negotiable at that point. So then you go through the rest of your day. And then when you get to that moment where you come home and you have the potential to sit down and rest, right? Well, I can't yet because I've got one more thing to do, and it's not going to take long. It's only going to take 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. And then after that, you can get into your default mode network, right? And you can let your lazy brain do whatever it wants to do, right, to keep you safe. But you've got to add that discipline in, right, and make it a non-negotiable. Again, you are trying to do something for yourself. And by not having a discipline plan in place, you're going to ultimately let yourself down. And then you feel bad about it, right? So back to the emotions. Then you're back into this feeling state where now, dang, I let myself down again, and I feel bad about that. And then that's going to set you back again. And then you lose motivation, right? So you're not going to pick the motivation back up tomorrow because you feel bad about yourself, because you let yourself down, right? You see how important discipline is? It's super, super crucial. So if you have a goal, right? A goal could be any goal. I don't care what the goal is, right? You've just gone into business for yourself online. You got to post content, right? You know what you need to do, but you still don't do it, right? And there's several reasons, right? So one, knowing and doing are two completely different things. Knowing what to do is easy. Doing the thing isn't as easy, right? And it requires self-discipline, right? Now you and future you, this is the second thing, now you and future you have completely different priorities, right? So knowing and understanding that, you've got to align more with your future self, right? You've got to know what that's going to feel like when you achieve that goal. And you've got to understand that you've got to chip away at it every single day, slowly but surely, right? You're saving money, you do it dollar at a time, right? If you're losing weight, you do it meal by meal. You don't keep thinking about the 30 pounds or 40 pounds you want to lose, right? And if you're going to the gym, you want to get ripped, right? You do it one set at a time, right? So you don't do it all in one gym session, right? So it's the same thing, right? So now you and future you have completely different priorities. And the last thing is, if you're deciding every morning when you wake up that today is the day, then you are depending on motivation and it is crippling you. So if you find yourself getting out of bed in the morning, today's the day, I'm gonna get it done, right? You're leaning too much on your motivation, which is emotion based, and you've got to get out of that cycle, right? So what does all of this mean for you, right? I think really it's step number 3, right? Deciding every day. If you're deciding every day and you keep putting it off and you keep getting into this emotional state where you don't do the thing and then you let yourself down and then you feel bad, so then you don't do the thing tomorrow. You're in this constant cycle, right? You have to stop making that decision, right? And that's where we talk about discipline. And that's how you have to create a plan to do something small every single day that is a non-negotiable, and understanding that that will ultimately get you to your goal. The problem is that the same brain that wants comfort now and that wants the thing now, right, is the same brain. You're using the same brain in 2 different modes. And so there's this conflict happening and you have to overcome that. And the only way that you're going to do that is you've got to make achieving your goal as comfortable as possible, but also know that it's going to take a bit of time to get there, right? So do a little bit every day instead of just waiting for that motivation and trying to dive into a huge chunk to get it done, right? So anyway, I am all about this, right? Because you can apply it to absolutely anything, right? So why do we know, but we still don't do the thing, right? So just remember these 3 things, right? Knowing and doing are different things. Now you and future you have different priorities. And lastly, if you find yourself trying to make the decision every single day, you are off track and you need discipline. And if you don't know how to get discipline, I can help you with that. I've actually created a course, a free masterclass that's in my Stan Store. It's in the link at the bottom of this video, and it's called The Discipline Code. And it runs about 50 minutes. You can break it up, and it's free, and you can go and check it out. But I designed this for anybody that's stuck in that hamster wheel of emotion and motivation and not knowing how to get to that place of discipline. So if that's going to be helpful for you, you can apply it to absolutely anything you want. It's my gift to you. It's called The Discipline Code. So check the link below. And you can download that and follow that. And I can be your little discipline coach. And you can just reuse it, rewatch it until you find, find the discipline and the plan that you need, right, for yourself. So that's there and available for you. So I really appreciate it. I hope this helped. Again, like I mentioned in the middle of the video, if you haven't been checking out my shorts channel, I definitely recommend you do that. 2 different psychological principles every day. I'm uploading there 60 to 90 seconds. I really hope that you find those useful, but appreciate the chat. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. Take care.